Good evening, everyone. I'm Riley King, and welcome to this edition of 603. Let's begin right now. Tonight on 603, we're taking a look at the history of Suncook Village. Let's begin. Suncook Village is one of the best preserved small mill towns in New Hampshire. Built at natural waterfalls on the Suncook River near the confluence of the Suncook and Merrimack Rivers, Suncook straddles the border between Pembroke and Allenstown, lying in two towns. The first water-powered mills were built here in the 1730s. Swill mills and grist mills were augmented by filling mills for cleansing wool cloth, by trip hammers from blacksmithing, and by mills for making paper from cloth rags. The village was also noted for its window glass factory, operated by the Chelmsford Glass Company on Glass Street between 1839 and about 1850. Deep beds of glacier clay made Suncook a center of brick manufacturing by 1880. Brickyards near Suncook produced 5.5 million bricks a year. In 1811, the Pembroke Cotton Factory Company built a brick textile mill just below the Main Street Bridge. This first mill was replaced by a second, which burned in 1859. The third Pembroke mill, now Emerson Apartments, was built at the Falls in 1860. The spinning and weaving of cotton transferred the Suncook village into a small metropolitan. The advent of the railroad brought hundreds of French-Canadian families who were recruited to work in the mills after 1860 and quickly became predominant in the population of the village. The Second Corporation of Webster Manufacturing Company built another mill just above the bridge in 1865. This burned in 1983. A third corporation, the China Manufacturing Company, built the China Mill on the Allenstown side of the river in 1868. China Mill is still operating. The waters of Suncook River granted 2,200 horsepower to turn the turbines of the three mills by 1900. The mills employed 1,555 men and women and children, producing 36 million yards of cloth each year. The village that grew up around these mills was largely built of wood until the 1870s. During the 1870s and 1880s, the latest 17 fires consumed much of the wood in town and spurred the rebuilding of downtown in locally made brick. One giant fire on January 25th, 1876, destroyed many buildings on the western side of the main street in Pembroke. The town widened the street on the west as merchants echoed new brick blocks. A second giant fire on August 14th in 1878 consumed much of the east side of Main Street. Again, this side of the street was widened as new brick structures replaced the old wooden buildings. A third fire on December 11th, 1886 burned a 10-year-old brick block on the western side of the street, north of the Clock Tower building. Buildings 3, 4, and 5 on the map were constructed after the fire of 1886. Many of these new buildings were designed and constructed by local builders, architects Samuel S. Otway, c. 1834 to 1909. Suncook Village displays excellent examples of the brickwork, and it's one of the most intact small 19th century commercial centers in southern New Hampshire. The Clock Tower building, designed by Otway in 1879 for merchants Charles Williams and J. L. Homers, has always been privately owned. Its clock, however, belongs to the town of Pembroke, having been purchased in 1879 through small private contributions. The E. Howard Company clock was restored in 2001. And that is a little history about Suncook Village, if you did not know. Hey, thank you for joining us for this evening edition of 603. I hope you all have a great evening, and I'll see you back here tomorrow for another edition of 603. Good night and goodbye.